Today, we're getting under the hood of women's health with Sidnee, a fractional COO and the founder of Heirloom Collective. Sidnee will get under the hood of perimenopause. How old were you when your perimenopause began?
I was about 40 or 41, I believe, when my perimenopause began, but I was not very educated on the topic, so I didn't know what I was looking for or what was necessarily happening. But it was about that time when I noticed changes in symptoms and started asking questions.
How did you know you were going through perimenopause?
Uh, I knew I was going through perimenopause because I started doing some research and discovered that actually perimenopause could start as early as 35. And as a woman, I had never been educated on the fact that there was anything really before menopause, that there was this lovely 10-year, potentially 10-year lead up. So as I became educated, I started to recognize some of the symptoms that were listed as things that were happening in my life, such as increased or changes in my cycle, increased bloating, cramping, different pain, and just started connecting the dots.
What were some unexpected symptoms or experiences you encountered during perimenopause?
Perimenopause as a thing was unexpected, but as soon as I started learning about it, I recognized so my cycle time got shorter. So instead of a 28 day, I started having a 24 day. I also had significant bloating, and I had dealt with GI issues my entire life, and so I just assumed it was GI, which newsflash, actually GI isn't even separate from all the hormones and all the fun stuff that's happening, so it's all one thing. But really significant bloating that I couldn't, no matter what I did in change of diet, change of habit, would not go away. Severe cramps that I couldn't work or concentrate without taking Advil. Um, some joint pain, and then recently, in the last couple months, so much fun, brain fog. I'm starting to have gaps of finding words and memory that's new, that wasn't there before.
How does it make you feel?
Experiencing perimenopause has two contradictory feelings, really. The first is just like like frustration and why do I have to be going through this? And why does no one know what's happening to me? Why are my doctors saying what they're saying? All that fun stuff. But recently, because of things like this Under the Sisterhood platform and others, I feel connected. So a lot of women are talking about it. And so now I get to bond with my girlfriends over what new perimenopause symptom we're having. So I wouldn't wish it on any of us, but it does have both the frustration side and the connection side.
How do you navigate the emotional changes and mood swings associated with perimenopause?
Navigating perimenopause has been interesting. I think the most important thing that I do is talk about it with girlfriends, commiserating over symptoms or sharing, hey, have you tried this? Or, various ideas has been really helpful. In my personal day-to-day, as I'm navigating like a work day, if I get in a funk or have a mood swing, I will use yoga, meditation, or going for a short walk as a way to kind of shift my mindset. And those have been helpful to this point.
Have you considered taking hormone therapy?
I've considered it about a year and a couple months ago when I had my last time with my gynecologist out of San Francisco. I brought it up and she was very old school and immediately was like, unless the pain is so unbearable and you just can't make it through the day, I do not recommend HRT. And so I've done my own research since, but I will say I take natural hormone balancing supplements and I do things like yoga, walking, movement to feel better. And so for right now, that's working. When it doesn't work, I absolutely am open to it and plan to explore that further with maybe a little bit more of an open-minded medical professional.
How did you approach discussing perimenopause with your healthcare provider?
A little over a year ago was the first time I brought this up, and I actually didn't have the word perimenopause in my vocabulary, but I told her my symptoms. So my cramps were getting worse, heavier bleeding, really, really painful breast tissue for 10 days. And I'm expressing this to her, and it's changed. It's getting worse. And she says, can you take an Advil? And I'm like, yeah, I can take an Advil. Can you make it through the day? Yeah, I can make it through the day. She said, unless you can't make it through the day, do not get on hormone replacement therapy. Now, she's of an older generation, and maybe the peak of her career was from some of the previous study that scared a lot of doctors out of using HRT. So I did proceed on to do my own research. But if that were my one engagement, and that's where I got my facts from, I would be in a situation where I would be so avoidant of HRT. And so I am using these natural hormone supplements to balance my hormones, and then doing physical things. But I'm highly open to finding a healthcare professional who will talk about HRT in a more open-minded way.
Have you encountered any misconceptions about perimenopause, and how do you address them?
I think we're all still really just learning what the heck perimenopause is. As many articles we can absorb, as many podcasts we can listen to. So I think, yeah, left and right. I think there are myths and misconceptions, the timeline, what it really means, what we really should do. And so I think right now, so much of this just leads back to keep having the conversation. We share articles with each other. We share resources with each other. We educate people. In fact, men in my life professionally, if there's a misunderstanding of what this might mean for a woman operating in the workplace, I do my fair share of trying to help educate and share. But I think it's really creating a safe place for people to have this conversation is the most important thing right now.
What resources or support networks have you found helpful during your perimenopausal journey?
My close group of girlfriends has been my best support group. Um, the oh gosh, I hope I get this right. Is it the National Menopause Society or the Society on Menopause? Has been a good resource. I also I follow on social media a lot of women's health experts. And I just try to absorb again, because I think a lot of people are still learning about this, as I discovered that most medical professionals receive between 1 day and 1 week of education on women's hormones over what is that, an 8-year educational journey for doctors. I think we all still have a whole lot to learn. So I just try to absorb different things from different sources, but it's really on social media, reading articles. McKinsey put out a good report on health effects of female hormones. So I think just gobbling a lot of it up and sharing amongst friends.
What has your perimenopause journey been like?
My perimenopause journey, again, I think it started before I realized it was starting. But I think like many women, it's just like oh gosh, what am I doing? What's happening to my body? Am I too stressed? Am I eating bad foods? Am I making bad choices? As an overachiever, have spent a lot of adult years reflecting on the amount of stress that I have in my life. And you're trying to pick up all these pieces. Am I eating enough protein? Am I doing all this stuff? But not really getting to the root of it. And so for the first part of this, it was, what the heck is going on? And am I doing something wrong? And then as of late, more and more conversations, more websites, more resources have made it so that I can say, oh, this is not just me. In fact, this is a laundry list of things that are happening to women everywhere. And there is a process and there are steps to take. And now I don't feel alone.
What changes, if any, did you make to your diet, exercise, or self-care routine to manage perimenopause symptoms?
Probably the headliner is protein. So recognizing, and I know this starts at 30, but recognizing muscle loss and the impact of that. I grew up as a dancer and a gymnast, and so I'm very much in my body. And so I am a movement maniac, and I want to be able, and as a single person, I want to be able to do what I can physically for as long as possible. I think everybody would say that. But so keeping muscle movement and mobility are top of mind for me. And so that's increasing the protein. I I don't know that this was because of my perimenopause or just because where I was in life, but I have started a morning yoga practice, continued a daily meditation practice. I have a journal practice in the morning, and then I walk with my dog twice a day. And so I think it's what I have found as my sweet spot is movement without screens that helps me, that both releases stress and calms me and brings me joy while also benefiting my body. So protein, movement, and Zen, I think are kind of the changes I've made.
Has there been any positive or empowering aspects of your perimenopause journey that surprises you?
I don't know if this is tied to perimenopause or age, but and from my wise elders, I keep hearing it's going to continue to get better, but um, caring less about what other people think and just being in my body and in my system and in what I want and my joy, that has been great. I do think there is a significant amount of self-empowerment when you can manage your symptoms from anything. And so learning what makes me feel better, um, continuing to be in community and have these conversations, and just really settling in on being a woman going through this process and shouting out loud that actually we are still important and brilliant and wise and contributors no matter our age. And so really leaning into that.
What advice would you give to women going through perimenopause?
Advice that I would give based on the last couple of years of experience I've had is number one, educate yourself. So maybe that's set aside a half an hour on Friday afternoons where you read one article or take in some information. Do it on the regular, but don't make it burdensome. The second is try supplements. So I experimented with a few different supplements. All of our bodies are different and they will um, react differently, but there are many choices out there in the supplement space that you can try. So I would try that. I found one that completely eliminated my bloat and reduced my cramping pain by about half. And so that was a life changer for me. And then the third, I would say, please talk about this with your girlfriends or sisters or whatever you're blessed with to have other adult female relationships in your lives. Have these conversations, normalize it, talk about what's happening. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that I knew what frozen shoulder was and that a shoulder pain could be tied to my hormones. And so all of this, knowledge is power. So having those conversations. And then actually let's spread the wealth, right? Have these conversations with your daughters, with your nieces, with young women around you so that they know what's coming and so that they can be a part of the normalizing and talking about how hormones actually are in every system of our bodies. And so a headache or a shoulder ache or a hip ache could have something to do with hormones, not just another factor. And I think these, education, trying new things in your system and having conversations are probably the three most important things that I've done.